A few months ago, I made a video about Mary Kate Bergman, a rising voice actress in the 90s and the events that led her to tragically take her own life. The characters she voiced on the popular series South Park went on to be voiced by completely different actresses. Luckily for series creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they already provide the voices for an overwhelming majority of the show's male cast of characters. The only recurring guy characters not voiced by either one of them are Token, the only black student at the school elementary voiced by series art director Adrian Beard, and Towley, an anthropomorphic talking towel voiced by series producer Vernon Chapman. And most famously, the now retired character Chef, who was voiced by popular American singer Isaac Hayes before his departure from the series and death over 16 years ago. It was the 1960s when Hayes began his career in composing music and songwriting, with him writing several hit songs by the soul and R&B group Sam and Dave, like When Something Is Wrong With My Baby, Hold On I'm Comin', and Soul Man, which was recognized as one of the most influential songs of the past 50 years by the Grammy Hall of Fame. He went on to compose the theme for the 1971 film Shaft, which won him an Academy Award for Best Original Song.
Who's the black private dick that's a sex machine to all the chicks? Shaft! Damn right.
He followed this up with several more albums and singles, and even began acting in films, including Escape from New York, Robin Hood Men in Tights, and the Nicolas Cage film It Could Happen to You. Chef was largely inspired by a dining hall worker that Trey had come across during his college years at the University of Colorado, and when Trey and Matt were considering actors to potentially voice him in the series, they thought of several famous African-American singers. The creators eventually chose Hayes, and he agreed to voice his lines for the show while he regularly hosted a radio show in New York City. He recorded his dialogue with digital audio tapes that he sent to the South Park crew by mail. Chef was the first major African-American and recurring adult character introduced in the series. He often served as a father figure to the main four boys, teaching them valuable lessons in precarious situations. He also liked to sing about making love to women whenever he wasn't doing something better with his time, including the song Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls in the episode of the same name.
If you ever need a quick pick me up, just stick my balls in your mouth.
His presence eventually became more diminished as the series went on, however, and it only took one episode for Isaac himself to reportedly call it quits. South Park had occasionally made jokes in its earlier years, making fun of the infamously controversial organization, the Church of Scientology.
It's John Travolta and the Church of Scientology! Hooray!
It was common for the show and the creators themselves to mock well-known religious beliefs before, such as Mormonism, but they hadn't yet made Scientology the basis for an episode until near the end of Season 9. Trapped in the Closet still remains one of the show's most controversial, yet brilliant episodes to date. It focuses on Stan being mistaken as the reincarnation of the prophet of Scientology by its members, with an interspersed subplot of Tom Cruise being so upset over Stan's opinion on his acting that he locks himself inside his closet for a majority of the episode. A metaphor for the recurring debate regarding Cruise's sexuality during the early 2000s. Funnily enough, the episode was one of the first times that the general public got a glimpse into the organization's beliefs, which would come across as so absurd to many that they had to spell out that they weren't making any of it up. Stan eventually learns that the supposed faith that he wanted to dedicate his life to was a giant scam meant to con people out of their money.
What's better than telling people a stupid story and having them believe you? Having them pay you for it, stupid! Because if those people all think you're the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard, then they'll all buy your new writings, and you and I together will make $3 million! $3
million?
That's how a scam works!
Trey and Matt already knew that the episode's scathing critique of Scientology could inevitably get them sued, something that the end of the episode was alluding to, which is why all of the crew members who worked on the episode were credited under pseudonyms. In April 2006, a rerun of the episode was pulled before airtime by Comedy Central, and it was rumored that Tom Cruise himself had requested this while he was promoting his next installment in the Mission Impossible franchise that released that summer, though Comedy Central denied this, saying they decided to re-air Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls instead. While none of the series' creators had to face any meddling Scientologists during the episode's production, and they never saw any legal consequences, they ended up losing one of their longest-running cast members. Isaac Hayes happened to be a member of the organization himself, but didn't seem to have much of a problem with the way the show had handled it. Well, I talked to Matt and Trey about that. They didn't let me know until it was done. I said, "Guys, you have it all wrong. We're not like that. I know that's your thing, but get your information correct, because somebody might believe that shit, you know? But I understand what they're doing. I told them to take a couple of Scientology courses and understand what we do." However, 2 months later, a statement on Isaac's behalf was made saying, "There is a place in the world for satire, but there is a time when satire ends, and intolerance and bigotry towards religious beliefs of others begins." Matt Stone responded to this, saying, "In the 10 years and over 150 episodes of South Park, Isaac never had a problem with the show making fun of Christians, Muslims, Mormons, or Jews. He got a sudden case of religious sensitivity when it was his religion featured on the show. The crew was then forced to put an end to Chef with the season 10 premiere, The Return of Chef, after the character had been absent for a while. But because Hayes was no longer there to record any new lines, the creators had to use archived audio from his past recordings to create new dialogue for him, which made him sound messed up in the head.
"Well, how about I meet you boys after work and we can make love?"
This was because he was, as before returning to the town of South Park, he was brainwashed by a cult called the Super Adventure Club, a group that liked traveling the world to prey on children. The episode even featured a backstory for the group, with the same text message over it the show used for Scientology. You see where they're getting at here? Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny even traveled to the Super Adventure Club headquarters to rescue Chef at the hands of the cult, only to watch him die a slow and painful death. So that leaves us with the biggest question here. Did Isaac Hayes really leave the show on his own volition? You would assume with the statement released on his behalf that this is a pretty open and shut case, but plenty of other sources beg to differ. In January 2006, a couple of months before the statement was released, Hayes suffered a major stroke, and considering the various negative effects one can have on someone, it's likely Hayes was unable to make any decisions on his own under such a condition. Even Fox News reported a couple of days before The Return of Chef premiered that the statement was made in Hayes' name only, and that none of it was written by himself. Isaac Hayes did not quit South Park. My sources say that someone quit it for him. Friends in Memphis tell me that Hayes did not issue any statements on his own about South Park. They are mystified. 10 years later, Isaac Hayes' son said the decision over his departure was made by his entourage, all of whom would have been Scientologists. The call and statement were made after he had suffered a stroke, leaving him vulnerable to outside influence and unable to make such decisions on his own. This seems like the most likely reason, except that Trey and Matt have given a completely different story over his departure, despite believing the disgruntled statement was never made by him.
You know, Isaac had quit and we understood that, and we actually all left on really good terms, and he was like, I'm a Scientologist and I want you to pull that episode. And we were like, well, no, we're not going to do that because we don't do that. And then he said, his lawyer said he's resigning. And we're like, okay, you know what? We understand. We knew that was a risk when we did it, but we had to do it. And so, you know, it's been great. And see you, love you. And then out of the blue, sort of when all the Scientology stuff broke with them pulling the episode, the rerun, there suddenly was this press release of Isaac saying that we were bigots and that's why he quit. And it was just so ridiculous, and so we still don't even really think it was written by Isaac, but anyway, we're like, all right, well, game on.
Hayes' income had largely decreased after leaving the show. In his final years before his death, he returned to touring and performing, but wasn't at his A game like he once was. Isaac was plunked down at a keyboard where he pretended to front his band. He spoke saying, and his words were halting, he was not the Isaac Hayes of the past. In April 2008, he was a guest on the Adam Carolla show, where he stumbled in responding to questions, and later on in that same interview, he said he was no longer on good terms with Trey and Matt.
So, Isaac, you got out of South Park because they were making fun of Scientology, and that is your religion, correct?
Yeah.
And did you talk to Matt and Trey? Because you had such a long run.
Long run.
Over there. And did you say to them, look, fellas, if you just leave this topic alone, Chef can go on forever?
They didn't leave it alone.
And they didn't have, and they never backed off it.
That's right.
And did you guys part under good terms, or how'd it go?
Well, not good terms. It's good.
I thought you said not good.
Not good.
Not good terms. It's good.
So you're not on good terms with Matt and Trey.
No.
No, and
But it was fun while it lasted.
They make fun of everything on that show, though, right?
Yeah.
And a few months later, Isaac Hayes was found unresponsive in his home and rushed to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead. It's sad what ultimately happened to Hayes, and how his career took a serious nosedive in his final years, not just from his medical condition, but his entourage that severely affected his financial income. Even if South Park had never made fun of Scientology, it's highly unlikely he still would have been able to participate in the show, considering everything that was happening to him. I think the best way for all of us to look back on Isaac Hayes' legacy is the same way the residents of South Park looked back on Chef following his demise.
We can't let the events of the last week take away the memories of how much Chef made us smile. I'm gonna remember Chef as the jolly old guy who always broke into song. We shouldn't be mad at Chef for leaving us. We should be mad at that fruity little club for scrambling his brains.
But despite his on-screen death, it wasn't the last time we saw Chef on the show.
How would you children like to suck on my chocolate salty balls?
Oh, you mean like a chocolate candy?
No, I mean my balls.
Yes!
Chef also made an appearance in the South Park game The Stick of Truth, which also used archived recordings he previously did, similar to the return of Chef. In the end though, Isaac Hayes still brought to life one of the most well-known and recognizable characters in the show, and as long as people remember who Chef was, they'll certainly know who Isaac was too.